Happy Sabbath. Thank you for tuning into church. We're so glad you could make it.
Good morning, church. We're happy to be praise team today. We hope everyone is doing well wherever you are. And we hope you feel like singing. We're going to do our best. We haven't played or sung in several weeks, so we're not as sharp as we'd like to be. But we're going to do our best. And if you'd like to sing along, if you have a hymnal, this is hymn number 312, Near the Cross. Jesus, keep me near the cross, there a precious fountain, free to all a healing stream, flows from Calvary's mountain. In the cross, be my glory till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, a trembling soul, love and mercy found me. There the bright and morning star sheds his gleams around me. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Near the cross, O Lamb of God, bring its scenes before me. Help me walk from day to day with his shadows o'er me. In the cross, be my glory ever, till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. Till my raptured soul shall find rest beyond the river. All right, for our next hymn this morning, we're going to do hymn number 100 in the hymnal, Great is Thy Faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, O Thou my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Join with all nature in manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, mercy, and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Pardon for sin and the peace that endureth. Thine own great presence to cheer and to guide. Strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Blessings all mine with 10,000 beside. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. All right, for our third and final hymn this morning, we're going to do number 469 in the hymnal, Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms. I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. A short one.
Have you ever been upset with your family, maybe your sister or your brother or maybe even a friend? I remember I have been upset with friends, with my sister, and especially one Christmas when my sister was 2 and I was 4. We got a very special present. Well, both of us got most awesome pink suitcases. Hers was round and mine was like this. Isn't it beautiful? Oh, it's not? Well, it was when it was my Christmas present when I was 4 years old. This little suitcase is over 60 years old, but it's still special to me. But let me tell you the story about my sister and what she used to do. She was just little, and she loved her little suitcase too. But you know what she would do? She would sit right on it. It was perfect size for her, like a little chair. And she would sit on hers, and the top of hers started going in. And she'd sit on mine, and the top of mine would start going in. Can you see how it's kind of a little dip there? That's because my sister Linda sat on it. Well, she sat on hers so many times that it just collapsed in. And I used to get upset. I would say, Mom, she's sitting on my suitcase again. I was so upset with her because I wanted it to stay beautiful, so I could put all my doll clothes in it and carry it around and play with my dolls and change their clothes and all those fun things. She didn't understand. She was too little. She just liked it for a place to sit because it was just her size. But it used to really make me upset. And you know, sometimes our friends make us upset. Sometimes our family make us upset. But there's a text in the Bible. It's, let's see, right here. It's in Proverbs 18, verse 24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly. So if we want to have friends, we have to be friendly, even if they do something we don't like. But the second part of the verse says, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Anybody know who that friend might be? I think you do. So let's say it together on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Jesus, that's our friend, and he will be our best friend, closer than even a brother or a sister.
How can we help your children develop wise management of their resources and to invite God into their financial life? Let's see what Ellen G. White suggests. That parents and teachers should make the study of figures something practical very early in children's lives. Children should learn through practice how to rightly use money. This money may be supplied by the parents as an allowance or be earned by the child. It should be used to purchase their clothing, books, and other necessities. They must be taught how to select and purchase those necessities. They must keep an account of their expenses. A report of expenses is strongly encouraged, which could result into getting the next allowance. If they are taught to put God first, they will choose tithe and promise as the first 2 actions after any new income is received. Then their savings will be the next, all before any other expenses may be met. It will lead them to a life of simplicity and frugality, more in line with a Christian lifestyle. Ellen G. White also says that teaching those lessons at a young age will not only encourage habits of benevolence, but will also teach them how to give, not from the mere impulse of the moment, but regularly, systematically, and will help them to remember who is the source of their income, linking their hearts to the one who is the real provider. By providing an allowance and this kind of education, parents are preparing their children not only to have a more successful life on this earth, but also eternal life. As you return your tithes and promise, pray for the younger generations of the church. May we put our desires last and God first.
Hey there, happy Sabbath. Today I would like to speak about a powerful text in the New Testament. And it's found in the book of Philippians. As you know, the book of Philippians was written as Paul was in jail. Still, the book of Philippians is known as the Epistle of Joy. A good reminder that we can still experience joy in the midst of chaos. and trusting that God can provide peace and joy even in the midst of the storm, I would like to invite you to close your eyes and ask Him to lead our thoughts and to bring peace into our hearts as we study His Word. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, as we open the book of Philippians, we ask for your Spirit to impress our thoughts. We're going to be talking about Jesus' example as a perfect role model. May Jesus inspire our words and our actions. May He bring true unity into our households. May He bring true unity into our church. Even though we're not able to meet in person, Lord, may your Spirit bring us all together as one as we open the Scriptures. In Jesus' precious name, I pray. Amen. I invite you to go to the book of Philippians chapter 2. Philippians 2, verses 1 to 11. Philippians 2, verse 1 to 11. Paul says, "Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from His love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one in mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to His own advantage. Rather, He made Himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness." Verse 8, "And being found in appearance as a man, He humbled Himself to become obedient to death, even death on a cross. Therefore God exalted Him to the highest place and gave Him the name that is above every name, that in the name of Jesus every knee shall bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth," whatever that is, "and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father." Here, Paul is instructing the church how they are to act as a family, as a church. He's leading them into unity. And it's unity with a purpose, for a reason. Verse 2 says, working together with one heart and purpose. It's when we follow the instructions that Paul provided that we, the church, can be united and we can accomplish our purpose. I think there are at least three main purposes of the church. The first purpose is to worship God. The second purpose is to build up the saints. And the third purpose, and to me, the most urgent one, is to spread the good news. To worship God, to build up the saints, and to spread the good news to the world. But unity is key for all three of those purposes. When we are united, God is glorified. Verse 11 speaks of Jesus exhibiting the same characteristics that Paul is admonishing us to exhibit. And he says that it led to the exaltation of Jesus to the glory of God the Father. So when we follow the command to be interested in others, that lead us to build them up. And therefore, this unity builds up the body. As we have studied before in the past few weeks, this beautiful verse of John 13:35 makes more sense. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples. So unity is important to accomplish the three main purposes of the church. But here, in the first few verses of Philippians chapter 2, we find at least 4 things that Paul admonished the church in Philippi to do. As a matter of fact, it's believed that verses 6 to 11, they were an early hymn of the Christian church. And Paul uses them as an illustration. And the people that read the words recognized the hymn. But Paul is trying to teach how is it we must, how is it we can live in unity. He says that we must learn from Jesus' example. So number 1, don't be selfish. Verse 3 emphasizes on that. You know, we live in a society that is very self-centered. The big question we ask is, what is in it for me? Or how will I benefit from it? But the church is not to be selfish. It's not about how can I get some benefit from it, but how can this benefit God's kingdom? Remember John F. Kennedy's quote, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country? And if that is true in an earthly political establishment, how much truer it should be of Christians in the kingdom of God. So we need to spend less time thinking of what God can do for me. Even what could God do for the church, and think more about what we can do for God as a church. Ephesians 4 verse 4 says that we are all one body. Because you see, the church is not made of disconnected people. The church is not about, okay, well, you go and you do your thing and I'm going to do mine on this end. Because for a body to work, we must work together, and the church is exactly the same. I'm sure that we all want to fulfill God's purposes. But if we allow ourselves to become selfish, then we start doing our own thing. You know, and usually it's not that we don't want to do God's work. Usually the problem is that I don't want to do God's work with brother so-and-so or sister so-and-so. I mean, I'm willing to work, but not with them. Well, when we do that, we are not really accomplishing anything for the kingdom, because we're separated from the body. So we, the church, must be a team working together for God's purposes, because that's the only way that they can be accomplished. You know, verse 5 in Philippians 2 has a powerful statement. It says that Jesus did not demand and cling to his rights as God. So he selflessly gave his own rights up. Because if he selfishly hung onto his own rights and would look what was best for him, God's plan would have never been fulfilled. He kept his whole life denying himself for the sake of you and me, for the benefit of others. He gave everything that was rightfully his. And as people, we don't have quite the rights as Jesus, but we still may have things that we think are our rights. But Christianity is not about self. Christianity is about others. Paul speaks of that concept in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 6. It says, "As for me, my life has already been poured out as an offering to God. The time of my death is near." You know, Paul was using this figurative language of the Old Testament, of the drink offering. Here it was an offering in which wine was poured out into the ground as an offering to God. And it's interesting that this poured out wine may seem like a waste from people's perspective, especially for people like us in this side of the world. We're trying to take advantage of the last drop, right? Especially if the drink is savory, if the drink is good, if the drink is pleasant. We don't want to waste it, but whenever we offer it to God, it is not a waste at all. I mean, it's our offering to God. I mean, what better, more noble use could that wine have gone to than to be poured out as an offering to God? I mean, even if it quenched a thirst or was used to clean a wound or to kill bacteria back in the day, or if there was any other use, none could have been as glorious as to be poured out to God. And so it is with our lives. There's so many things that we can accomplish with our lives. There's so many levels of success. And you know what I'm talking about, right? You know, it's interesting that the Greek word for poured out used here is the word spendo. Yeah, it's the root of the English word spent. I mean, what if I became a doctor and found a cure for cancer? Or if I would become an engineer and solve a great problem? An immunologist and find a cure for COVID? What if I owned lots of property and had several vehicles to my disposal? Could that life be as well spent as a life that was lived to glorify God? It may seem that the person poured out to God never accomplished anything. For some, in human eyes, it may look like a terrible waste. You know, I remember that summer after I graduated from high school, and I was still debating on what to do with my life. I met this teacher who had been my dad's teacher back in the day when he went to college, Pastor Samuel Schmidt. And I still remember his words when I asked him, "What do you think I should do with my life?" He said, "Whatever good thing you have, give it to the Lord." That gave me a lot of perspective. You know, sometimes that's God's plan. Sometimes God utilizes education and success. What I'm trying to say is not that human success is wrong at all, but that to measure life, I mean, the measure of a life well spent It's not what great things you have accomplished of how much success you have had. What's important is, was your life spent for yourself, or was it dedicated for God's purposes? Did you pour yourself into your own ambitions, or did you use the things like your career, your success, your talents, your resources to pour yourself into God's kingdom? So the first lesson was, don't be selfish. The second is, do not live to make a good impression of others. Verse 3. Philippians 2, verse 3. You know, in a such society like the one we have, you know, that is always oriented to success, it seems like everyone wants to impress others with their accomplishments. We try to highlight the things that we have done to bring credit to ourselves. You know, and I've discovered that no matter how much people make in America, it is never enough. Because most people spend it all trying to live up to their status. But it's not just in financial matters that we want to impress people. You see, we want people to be impressed with our accomplishments also, and sometimes, especially in the church, we want to we want to impress people with our sacrifices. We want people to be impressed with everything we do. I mean, it's a basic part of sinful human nature. You know how it's called? Pride. Yeah, we all suffer from it. We're so concerned about what others think of us. And guess what? Pride creeps into the church too. I must say, pride creeps especially into the church. People often want others to know their accomplishments for God's kingdom. They want others to know what they have given, what they have sacrificed. We want for the person right next to us to know that we are a holy person. I mean, not that's wrong for others to see a holy person unless it's not real holiness, but only a show. But Jesus did not live to impress others. Verse 7, Philippians 2:7 says, He made Himself nothing. The King James Version translates this as, but made Himself of no reputation. As the creator of the world, Jesus was deserving much glory. In fact, John 1 speaks of Jesus being God, and that means that He had the full glory of God. But, you know, He didn't empty Himself of His godness. We know that when Jesus was on earth, He was 100% man and 100% God. So what did He empty Himself of? He emptied Himself of His reputation, of His mighty power and glory. Remember when He was tempted in Luke chapter 4 verse 9? When the devil tempted Jesus, the devil took Him to Jerusalem, to the highest point of the temple, and said, if you are the Son of God, jump off. What would be the point in doing that? Well, you know, the temple was a place where people would gather. There was huge crowds. I mean, I was there in that corner where that highest point was, and there was a bridge that would bring people into the temple. There must have been a ton of people there to watch the spectacle. It would have dazzled the crowds. It would have been really impressive, but Jesus, though He had the opportunity to impress others, He knew that was not the way of the Father. As a matter of fact, many times when He made a miracle, when He performed a miracle, He asked the people to stay quiet. No, we do not deserve the glory of men when we try so hard to impress them. But Jesus was worthy of it all. You know, Jesus dealt with spiritual pride. Remember that situation he faced with the Pharisees? Jesus told him in Matthew chapter 6, we studied at the beginning of this year in the Sermon on the Mount. He told him, be careful not to look for the recognition of people. Don't do things to be publicly admired. Whenever you give, don't give so others will give you all the accolades for your sacrifice. But Jesus was not talking only about money here. He even talked about the possibility of being prideful, spiritually prideful in prayer. This is the first danger with being worried about making good impressions on others. We may do good things with the wrong attitude. We are so influenced by a results-oriented society that sometimes we forget that God is not as interested in our results as He is interested in our hearts. That sort of arrogant pride breaks up the unity of the body of Christ. When one person becomes prideful, the others begin to look at that person in a different light. This past Wednesday in our Bible study, we were talking about the difference between being committed as Christ followers or to surrender as Christ followers. And we concluded that many times we're extremely committed to the church, but we have not surrendered our lives to the Lord. We're committed to our beliefs, but we have not surrendered ourselves. And you see, there are many situations in which no accolades are given. There are many situations where people have to work behind the curtains and do things that nobody knows about. Mind you, I really care about recognizing people for what they do. I am not discouraging you from encouraging others by recognizing what they're doing. But when we do so, let's give glory to God, not glory to people. You see, thank God for giving people the talent, the commitment, the passion. Praise God for their lives being poured out because they're surrendering themselves to the Lord and submitting their talents and their time and in order to serve others. Remember the church in Sardis, Revelation chapter 3, verse 1, that Christ condemns. It says, I know all the things you do, and that you have a reputation for being alive, but you are dead. You see, Sardis looked like a well-adorned corpse at a funeral. But God was not fooled. It is possible that we may be so busy making ourselves look good in the eyes of other people that we never do actually anything worthwhile. I think the best thing we can do is not to look for the recognition, but to serve God regardless. Paul recorded Jesus' words to him in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. My gracious favor is all you need, Jesus told him. My power works best in your weakness. So Paul responded, so now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may work through me. Rather than try to impress people with our greatness, we must realize that the most important thing that we can accomplish for God's kingdom is to recognize our weaknesses and work through them. So don't be selfish. Don't live to make a good impression on others. And also be humble. Think of others as better than yourself. And the point goes hand in hand with the last point. Sometimes we have a superiority complex. Remember the parable, Jesus told a story of the two worshipers in Luke chapter 18. They go to church to worship. One was a tax collector. The other one was a Pharisee. The Pharisee looked down upon the tax collector. See, God cannot work in people who think they are great. 1 Peter 5:5 says, the last portion of the verse, God sets himself against the proud, but he shows favor to the humble. And he's talking about relationships again. You see, God is not only against the proud, but he is being specific about being prideful within the church. Look at the context. When we think that we are better than others, we destroy the unity of the church. And please remember how important that unity is to fulfill God's purposes for the church family. Jesus was humble. Verse 7, Philippians 2 says that he took the humble position of a slave and appeared in human form. To become human was humbling for Jesus. He took the form of a servant. He demonstrated servanthood to his disciples. We did it a couple of weeks ago when he washed his disciples' feet. He did the messy job of a slave because he wanted to show us, his disciples, that the kingdom is not for those who think they're great. The kingdom is for those humble servants who follow their servant master. And indeed, the humbling of Jesus, which went even to the point of dying on a cross, was what led to his glory. Philippians 2:9, because of this, it says, God raised him up to the heights of heaven and gave him a name that is above every other name, that in the name of Jesus every knee will bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. James 4 verse 10 says, humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. It is not only through humility that you will find exaltation. His humility will allow you to do the greatest things for the kingdom. Before the time of Christ, humility was never considered as a virtue. It was a sign of weakness. Nobody wanted to have it. It was not desirable. But Jesus taught us the power of humility, and humility is a powerful tool that helps to keep the unity in the church. So don't be selfish. Do not live to make a good impression of others. Be humble. Think of others as better than yourself. And the last one, and with this I finish, be interested in others. The church is not a one-man show. The kingdom of God is not about what you are doing or what I am doing. It's about what we are doing together. I'm going to say it again. The kingdom of God is not about what you are doing. It's not what I'm doing. It's about what we are all doing together. We may have some part that is our own, but we have our own role and function as a body. We cannot just do our job and forget about everyone else. It's not that we just do our thing if someone else does something that has nothing to do with us. Paul urges us to take an interest, a genuine interest in other people. Verse 8 says that Jesus was interested in others. Philippians 2:8, and in human form he obediently humbled himself even further by dying a criminal's death on a cross. He didn't die on the cross for himself. He died for us. He died for others. He showed genuine interest to his own disciples. Remember when Peter fell? John chapter 21. Jesus walked the extra mile. He wanted to meet him, to encourage him. For him, every person was valuable. He took genuine interest in people. He taught his disciples to love by loving them. And because he loved the 12 loved hundreds, and the hundreds loved thousands. Remember, the kingdom of God is about people. Yeah, we can get caught up in systems and programs and structures that we forget about people. And I think this pandemic is forcing us to stop worrying about programs and worry more about people. I mean, there are a lot of things we can accomplish, but if we forget the people, we have accomplished everything in vain. So, I would like to challenge you this week. Reach out to someone. Call them, text them, send them an email. Ask the Lord to show you, who should you reach out to. Because, when we are unselfish, we glorify God. We truly build the body of believers, and we're able to reach out to those unbelievers who are attracted to our selflessness also. Our work is not to impress others, but to be humble, because humility glorifies God. And as we build others, we build ourselves too. Humility allows us to accept sinners and lead them to Christ. Don't be mistaken. Sometimes we try to differentiate ourselves from the people that are unchurched. And we forget that we are all sinners. It's not about you or me. It's about Him and what He can do in your life and what He can do in their lives also. And finally, a concern for people mirrors God's concerns and thus glorifies Him. A genuine love and concern for people will attract others who are searching for acceptance. Therefore, unity in the church is not just desirable, but absolutely essential in the church, if the church wants to fulfill its purposes. That's what Jesus prayed in John chapter 17, verse 21. My prayer for all of them is that they will be one. And Jesus continues and He says, just as you and I are one, Father. Just as you are in me and I am in you, so they will be in us, and the world will believe that you sent me. So don't be selfish. Don't live to make a good impression on others. Be humble. Think of others as better than yourself, and be interested in others. The Bible is more communal than individual. Jesus teaches us to pray to our Father, not to my Father. Paul uses the phrase our Lord 53 times and my Lord only one time. We are God's people and we belong to each other. I miss our building. We have a beautiful church building. I realize that God is always focused on building something within our hearts. So I pray that He will bring and build the right unity we need, even though we're separated physically, that He will bring true unity into our church. That's my prayer for you. So please pray for me. I need it. And as we do that, we're lighting a candle. We're interceding for others. We're showing interest. And we're building connections that this body needs to continue serving and to continue working. Let's be the church. Let's be united. Heavenly Father, as we finish this message this morning, we humbly ask for you to send your Spirit, for us to stick together in the midst of this pandemic. Even though we cannot meet in person, Lord, help us to connect in spirit through your Spirit. Help us, Lord, to put our differences aside. Help us, Lord, to be humble. Help us, Lord, to forgive each other. Help us, Lord, to come together as one and to work and serve together for the glory of your name, Lord. Forgive us, Father, if we've been judgmental. Forgive us if we've been looking at what other people are doing instead of focusing on what we should be doing. Lord, help us to be beacons of light in the midst of this awful darkness. Heavenly Father, bring us together in spirit. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
There is a candle in every soul, some brightly burning, some dark and cold. There is a Spirit who brings a fire, ignites a candle, and makes his home. Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, go light your world.
Frustrated brother, see how he's trying to light his own candle some other way.
See now your sister, she's been robbed and lied to, still holds a candle without a flame. Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle and go light your world. We are a family who whose hearts are blazing. So let's raise our candles and light up the sky. Pray to our Father in the name of Jesus. Make us a beacon in the darkest times. Carry your candle, run to the darkness, seek out the hopeless, confused and torn. Hold out your candle for all to see it. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle, go light your world. Take your candle,
Go light your